Hey everybody, I'm responding very quickly to the constant noise about and an action I feel should not have been done, which was the forced resignation of now former Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority Executive Director Scott McKibben. And I'll tell you why. Because the city attorney and the board could have simply said, we understand that you didn't know that you were owed this fee and you could negotiate this fee because there are rules against self-dealing, yada, yada, yada. And Scott would have said, okay, fine. In fact, Scott never received the dime and told them, hey, you know what? You can keep the money. All right. I have a personal relationship with Scott based on business we did with the Super Bowl, trying to bring Super Bowl to Oakland, that goes back long years. Okay. And I know for a fact that if he or anybody else, goes back specifically to 1999, is made aware of the parameters within which they will work within those parameters. The Joint Powers Authority allowed Scott to act as an agent and go out and make deals to bring not just Ring Central in and provide a naming rights deal, $4 million for a facility that's losing all three of its teams, A's, Raiders, and Warriors, but also work to secure agreements with such business persons as Roy Choi, who owns two indoor football league teams and was poised to bring a brand new third one to Oakland. That was something that Scott was working on. If the JPA didn't want Scott to have something extra from that, they should have simply told Scott and said, hey, look, we love what you're doing, we appreciate it, but you can't do this. And he would have said, fine. Instead, they made it a cause célèbre, and they made it a reason to jettison him, which causes me to ask the question, why? By allowing an amount of $50,000, which Scott had never, actually, and I have to tell this correctly, because Scott had never come up with that money. But whoever did must have been nuts. It didn't come from Scott, okay? But when that number gets out in the sports industry, the question that I always get from sports marketing people is, that's all? That's the response. Out of a $4.3 million contract, $50,000. So whoever came up with that number obviously just demonstrated they have no knowledge of what's sensible with respect to negotiations in business in terms of percentage or logic, in particular sports. Anybody that has, if you're watching this, you have any experience in sports, you know that is a mere pittance of a fee to receive for negotiating and setting up a naming rights deal. And look, when we hire people, and I mean the Joint Powers Authority, of which I'm not affiliated with officially, but I feel some responsibility toward, okay? But when we go out and hire sports marketing organizations to find naming rights partners, as we did with Randy Vataha many decades ago. This goes back to the net zero days, and when net zero put its name on the stadium. Randy Vataha, I was saying, wasn't that the same guy that played with the played for the New England Patriots at one point as a wide receiver? The answer is yes. He started his own sports marketing company. All right, but they received a large fee. So what happens if the person you're hiring is an independent consultant, and that says so on the contract, and they're being paid as an independent consultant, but they're also the designated executive director of the Oakland Alameda County Joint Powers Authority. That situation in and of itself implies a conflict if you're going to call what Scott did or alleged to have tried to do a conflict. He didn't say, hey, look, I'm taking money. He didn't take anything. He simply asked for it to Ring Central. That's all. And what Ring Central did was say, oh, that's no problem. But then they went and said to the city attorney, said, hey, we don't understand this. Which was on their part, if what I'm understanding is the case, if they did that, that doesn't say anything good for them, okay? If what I'm getting is true, if what my sources are telling me is true, and I have no reason to believe they're not. That's bad. But worse yet is for the city attorney's office to not back him. And, was part of that political? Is Oakland City Attorney Barbara Parker upset because Scott didn't the joint JPA board didn't back the city of Oakland in the case of the Raiders lawsuit? That's not really Scott's fault. That's actually, you have to remember, there's a county of Alameda too. And the county of Alameda is not party to the Raiders lawsuit. To the city of Oakland's lawsuit against the Raiders. So there's a lot of this that spells continued dysfunction. And look, I love Henry Gardner. But Henry himself will tell you his limitations. And they being Larry and Nate, JPA and Barbara and others, they brought Henry in because they didn't know what else to do. And they apparently reacted with a panic that I think was not necessary for the situation. Cooler heads should have prevailed in this instance. So it's a loss for everybody. But it must be reported. It must be known. You must know this, that Scott left the Joint Powers Authority, and by extension the Coliseum, both the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda, in better shape financially than he found them in, where they were able to turn around and say, we turned a profit. We haven't been able to say that in ever, okay? Ever. And so that's the way the man is treated. Oakland consistently fails. It does not want to succeed. And at some point, it has to step back, in terms of government, and ask itself, why? What is it that Oakland is so afraid of? It doesn't matter if you take a look at how I was treated with respect to the Super Bowl, or any myriad number of examples with respect to sports in Oakland, and how we're losing our teams and fading, allowing us to be pulled in all these different directions. Or how when we set up a Joint Powers Authority, it's ran mostly by elected officials, whereas the previous version that was private did really well. Its only problem was that it didn't report to the public sector as much as it should have, okay? To the elected officials. But that was really its only problem. Okay, one other problem. It did have a finance director that allegedly embezzled funds. Allegedly. That was back in, I think, 87. So, but aside from that hiccup, they had many other great achievements. Many. But this is a sad way to want to see the JPA fold and close out its business. The city of Oakland, the county of Alameda, need to express a better level of care, desire of a better level of care for the multi-billion-dollar Coliseum facility that's owned by the taxpayers than it has. What has been done, and also arguably not done with respect to the facility, is shameful. And I understand the Raiders, with respect to the lawsuit, I understand the lawsuit because the Raiders did not act in good faith. But the Raiders do have a powerful case, and a correct one, regarding the lack of aggressiveness the city exhibited in not building a stadium. Again, but then the city would say, well, they didn't seem what they wanted to stay. But if you wanted a model example of an aggressive, okay? An aggressive, you want a model example of an aggressive, and I repeat, an aggressive organization, that would be the city and county of San Francisco under San Francisco Mayor Ed Lee. Subscribe to Zenny 60 because it was that government organization that paved the way for the Warriors to leave Oakland for San Francisco and a beautiful new place called Chase Arena. Stay tuned to Zenny 62 on YouTube. Subscribe to Zenny 62 on YouTube and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com.